So if a genie, or maybe a good witch since it's Halloween, walked in and said, you can have any wish you want, one wish, guaranteed to come true, what would you wish? What would you wish? One wish. Which area of your life was your wish in? Was it for loving relationships? Was it for financial freedom? Was it for perfect health? Was it for creative expression in the world of your talents and gifts? What area of your life was your wish in? Is it possible that's not here now because at some point, unconsciously, you made a vow of poverty in that area of life? Many of us were raised in families or maybe religious traditions, and we heard things like money is the root of all evil. We heard things like it's better to give than receive. Or maybe we were taught that general overarching idea of there's just simply not enough, so don't ask. I heard that a lot in my family. With money myths like these rooted in our subconscious because they came at such a tender age and we made decisions about them before we had the capacity to understand, they're rooted deeply in our subconscious, and it takes a focus and it takes perseverance, it takes discipline to bring those up into the light, the healing light, so that they can be healed and transformed in our life. So today, my talk is a vow of prosperity, changing that, transforming that to a vow of prosperity. And we're going to look at uncovering these myths, and we're going to see how we can heal them to live more abundantly as Spirit intended for us. Since God can do for us only what God can do through us, healing these beliefs in poverty really allows us to experience the good of God as our lives. Make sense? All right. Let's look more closely at these 3 myths that many of us have experienced and see also maybe how they might be showing up in our lives. And we can look at our lives as the mirror, the reflection of our beliefs, right? So let's take a look at some of those. Let's start with the first one. Money is the root of all evil. Now, if you've been in New Thought for a while, you've probably already heard the correct translation of that. Not translation, actually quoting of that. It's a misquote in the Bible that for some reason they missed the part about the love of money is the root of all evil. That's a real different statement from money is the root of all evil, isn't it? Because what that statement is saying is that when we put something ahead of God, the love of money is more important than God in our lives. We are setting up that false idol, setting up something ahead of the divine, ahead of Spirit, making that the idol as opposed to Spirit. So that's really the translation of that. And like we said last week, when God is first in our life, all things are possible, right? With God first, all things are possible. So a question to ask yourself might be, where am I putting something else first in my life? Where am I putting something else first in my life? And because these principles apply to all of those areas of our life, let's look at relationships. Let's look at relationships. Whether you were calling in the one or struggling with the one you got, where are you putting love in your life? Is love first in your life? We know that God is love, right? And we know that Spirit resides within us, each one of us individualized, and that we are manifestations of love. So it's natural for us to enjoy loving relationships with each other because we're all love at our core. We just get stuff mixed up, right? What are we putting before love in our life? And to put love first, of course, starts with self-love. We've all heard that, right? You can't have a loving relationship until you love yourself. Well, it's true. It's true. It's very much like oxygen masks on airplanes. You got to take care of yourself first. If we're manifestations of God, created of God, then loving ourselves is loving God. Self-love may be the missing ingredient for calling in the one or repairing, if you will, a relationship that you may have. When we are seeking love outside of ourselves, someone else to make us happy, I'll be so happy when I finally find Mr. or Mrs. Ms., not Mrs., Mr. or Ms. Perfect, wonderful. I'll be so happy then. In that thought alone, we have given away our power. We have given away our power to someone else, because as soon as we think someone else can make us happy, that person has the power to make us unhappy. So we must first find that love within ourselves and be in love with ourselves, not from a egotistical type of way, but just that genuine realization of our own self-worth, our own loveliness, our own lovability, the fact that we are love, grounded and anchored in that, okay with life as it is in that love with ourselves. From that standpoint, from that vibration of love, cannot help but attract to us other loving beings. Cannot help. It's the way it works. It's the way the system, the law, it's the way it works. Cannot help but attract to us. Another frequently misquoted message, funny, these things come from that ancient text, the Bible, but a lot of those translations got a little convoluted over time. And this one is, it's better to give than receive. Anybody deal with that one? It's better to give than receive. That sets up the silent message that receiving is bad. Receiving is bad. And the quote comes from the book of Acts, and it was quoted by Paul, who was much later than Jesus, right? He became an apostle much later than Jesus was alive. I don't think he even knew Jesus. And he said that Jesus said this. Jesus didn't say it. I can't find it any place in the Bible, in any of his teachings, that he actually said that. He was more, his teaching, his words were more in line with things like, give and it will be given to you. Give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put in your lap. For with the measure you use it, will be measured back to you. Sound familiar? Those are universal spiritual laws, right? Cause and effect. It is done to you as you believe. That was the core of his teaching, not it's better to give than receive. In New Thought, we don't teach that because that doesn't even make any sense. It's better to breathe out than breathe in. No, not necessarily. It's a cycle. It's circulation. Giving and receiving, we must have both. You can't be a giver if there's not a receiver, can you? So giving and receiving are both critical to circulation. If you've ever tried to give someone something and they went, I don't want it, how do you feel? So we have to be good receivers also. I think I've shared before the truth that happened several years ago. I had some extra passes to the Phoenix Open. I'd been upgraded. I'm abundant. And so I had these extra passes, and there was people standing in line at the gate to go up and pay for tickets to the Open. 3 out of 4 people refused my offer. I have free tickets I'd like to give you. I've been upgraded. I am blessed. Would you like these free tickets? No. I'd rather stand in line for 35 minutes and buy my tickets. What? 3 out of 4 people. Finally, the 4th person, they were younger, and they said, yeah, heck yeah, we'll take them. I was amazed by that, at the resistance that we have to receiving our good. Compliments. Oh, this old thing. And we push stuff away all the time. We push our good away. So look at that and be aware of where in your life it's better to give than receive is showing up. where you're not a good receiver. Ernest Holmes says, our life is to be governed by spirit. We need look no further. It will do for us all that we will ever ask, provided we believe. Why then is it not already done so? The answer is that it has already done so, but we have not received it. The Spirit may offer, but we must accept the gift before it can be made. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. We must understand that this receiving is a mental process. It is one of mentally taking. When you're doing your prayer work, when you are in the realization stage, are you mentally in picturing that and receiving that and being in the energy of what it is that you're praying about? In the perfect right health. That's when our prayers begin to get powerful, is when our emotions come up and the belief comes up. And I believe in my perfect and right health. I believe in the prosperous flow of abundance through me to me now. I accept, I claim, I know how I feel when it is here. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. That is the realization. That is the accepting before we receive, which is why when we hit the gratitude, it's easy. We've already received it all in our minds. So it's easy to be so grateful for that which I have just created and received in the invisible, knowing that it is making itself manifest in my life. That's the power in our prayer, is this idea of receiving mentally before we see it in form. So check in with your belief about receiving. Again, giving and receiving is a circle. We can't have one without the other. Cannot have one without the other. The other big myth is there's not enough. There's not enough. Don't ask. And by the way, people that have a lot are bad. That's kind of right in there with that one, isn't it? It's all kind of mixed in there together. The silent message is you got to compete. There's not enough. So you better get in there and get yours, because there's not enough. And people who have too much are bad. How much is too much? I don't want to be bad and have too much, but I want to have enough. Where's the line? Where's the line on that? This can show up in our lives as never quite making it. There's always just enough. But we're on the edge. And life is a little bit of a struggle. There's a little bit of fear and insecurity there. It's not quite making it. We may have healed the intellectual part of there's not enough, but sometimes it's rooted so deeply that we sabotage from that deeper rooted belief that we have that there's not enough. There's really not enough. So I better get out there and compete for mine. I better get out and compete for mine. Wallace Wattles. That book, I cannot recommend it enough. I've read the other versions of it several times, and not until I read this version, same Wallace Wattles work, with the study questions at the end of the chapter. There were 10 to 25 questions, and they were deep questions. We had to go deep within and do some work. And everyone that took that book study has said it was transformative. And it was for me also. In it, he says, you must get rid of the thought of competition. You are to create. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. Not to compete for what is already created. Isn't that wonderful? To me, that was a very powerful shift in consciousness when you think about competition and what's already there, and you're playing in the world of effects of what's there, as opposed to stepping into your power as a creative being that can create from the divine desire of God through us something new and wonderful and powerful. It was a transformative thought for me. It really was. It shows up in thoughts like, all the good ones are taken. Anybody ever had that thought? All the good ones are taken. Yeah. The market is bad. I can't sell my house. The market is bad. Stock market's bad. I can't invest now. It's a terrible time. But in reality, if we look back throughout history, houses sell in bad markets. People buy in good markets and bad markets. Investors make money in good markets and bad markets. We can't look back and go, oh gosh, if I just had money during those RTC days, I could have bought all those houses for a song and I'd be a multi-gillionaire right now. That's old stuff, isn't it? That's creating from what's here right now, as opposed to allowing Spirit to come through and lead and guide us into that upward spiral of evolution, that upward spiral of creativity through us as us. We don't have to compete. We create because we are surrounded by, live in a field of infinite possibilities, pressing against us always. What do you want to do? Create. Create. Wallace, Ernest, and all prosperity teachers, frankly, teach that prosperity comes through our consciousness, activated by the law of attraction. But it's as we believe, because we're beings of choice, each one of us. We get to choose what we're going to accept. It's like anybody ever get overwhelmed in Costco? I've not been in Costco in years, and I gave up my membership to it because I was one person then, and just too much stuff, too big of quantities and everything. But I would also find I get in there and get overwhelmed because there's so much in there. And why was I telling you that? That wasn't even in my notes. Why was I telling you that? Costco overwhelmed too much. Oh, it's like the universe always giving to us so many things and ideas and opportunities in this field of infinite possibilities. We can allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by it. So what we do is we have choice and we block everything out except those things which, as we believe, want to come through us. So don't allow all the infinite possibilities to overwhelm. Simply allow to come through you that which you believe, as I believe. But making sure what's rooted in that consciousness, that subconscious that runs our life 95% of the time, what's down there? Is it lack and limitation, poverty, or is it prosperity? Is it prosperity? The statements that Wallace makes is profound because it reminds us that we're creators. It reminds us that you don't have to compete. Competition is lack. We don't have to compete. We create. We create. Wallace goes on to say that it is the natural and inherent impulse of life to seek to live more. He goes on to say that this impulse for more is inherent in all life. We've all seen grass growing through concrete or pavement. That's life seeking expression, even in a hostile environment. That's life seeking more expression. It reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's ever arching upward from the basic needs of shelter and food up through self-realization. It's that upward spiral that Ernest Holmes talks about, that we are ever evolving and expanding in an upward spiral. That's life seeking more expression through us. The desire for more is the gift that we have of spirit. Imagine if you didn't want anything new, different, more in your life. Would it get boring? It probably would. It would probably get pretty boring if there wasn't something there that we were wanting more of. And a lot of times we associate that with more material things, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not always that. I want more peace. I want more love. I want to express more love in the world. I want more joy. I want to express more kindness. I want to receive more kindness. So it's more of life seeking to express through us. And we can live that more through using our unique gifts and talents that have been individualized through us. We each have different gifts and talents in this room, yes? Yeah, each have very different unique talents. And that's how we express our more. Mine is not expressed like Beverly's or Keith's or Colette's or anyone else's. They're all expressing differently. Thank goodness, right? Thank goodness. We're all different. We live our more through those gifts that we've been given. If our purpose is to express spirit in form, and it is, by the way, that is our purpose, it has to include prosperity in all areas of our lives. The more completely we realize good as health, wealth, and happiness in our lives, the more completely we express spirit. The more completely we express spirit, and the more spirit becomes personified through us. Ernest reminds us that both prosperity and poverty are states of mind, sort of like heaven and hell. If you desire to erase the thought of poverty, we must go back to the thought of prosperity. Again, focus on what it is that we desire. We desire prosperity. We focus on prosperity. An affirmation of the allness of good, the source of which is God. We are confronted with the revealing truth that poverty is lack of knowledge of God. I've not read that before from Ernest. We are confronted with the revealing truth that poverty is a lack of knowledge of God. If we had a complete realization of the allness of good and our allness with God, we would automatically express abundance. Is it time to commit to living well? Think of that George Strait song, living and living well. To living in right relationship to your source. Because that's what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking about getting ourselves into alignment with source, who is seeking to express this abundance and prosperity through us. We just need to align with it. If you're out of alignment, you're missing it, right? We're missing it. It's not quite hitting. We just need to get in alignment with it. And maybe it's time to take a vow of prosperity. So let's take a look at our practicing the principles this week and see how we might live a vow of prosperity if we choose to make that. Mindful Monday is the email that I send out on Monday mornings. It's a summary of the talk, the notes, the quotes, and these practicing the principles in greater detail that you can then use in your life throughout the week to practice these principles, to apply them in your life. It's great to come here on Sundays. I love seeing everybody in the room and online and connecting with everyone, but it's really important that we apply this to our life, that this teaching has relevance for us. So you can sign up in the lobby if you're not already on the list, or folks at home, you can send me an email and we'll add you to the list for tomorrow. Number 1, and Joe, I didn't give you number 2. I changed it. Oops. Number 1, reveal and heal prosperity myths. Spend time this week reflecting on some of the prosperity myths in your life. What do you hang on to? Money is the root of all evil? Dirty stuff? It's not enough. There's just not enough. What do you hold on to? Write them in your journal, and if you decide to break through them, create an affirmation affirming their opposite. Affirm your new belief and repeat it every hour throughout the day. Set your alarm on your phone if you need to. And then 3 times right before you go to sleep at night, planting that in the soil of your subconscious. Let your subconscious work on that, because what we're doing is we're pouring in the new prosperity awareness into our subconscious to renounce the poverty vow we may have taken as children. But we've got to keep diluting that until it is dissolved. So some examples that you might want to use: money is evil becomes money is the good of God in form. Money is the good of God in form. Better to give than receive transforms to I gratefully and joyfully receive all forms of my good today. There's not enough. Becomes I live in an opulent universe and I am richly blessed and financially free. A little more empowering. A little bit. All right, the second one, which Joe doesn't have, is God first in your life? So you have to sign up for Mindful Monday if you want this one. Is God first in your life? Spend time in contemplation of where God is first in your life. Look for the good. Where is God first in my life? And discover if there are any areas where you're putting something else first. Pride, money, success, family. Is there someplace else you're putting those things first before God? Some questions you can ask yourself in that contemplation. What is my first thought when facing a challenge? I got to figure this out. Resistance, something like that. Or is it, gosh, I should pray about this. I should pray about this. Take it to God. Is your spiritual practice your top priority above everything else? Is your spiritual practice your top priority? Is offering a prayer or a blessing your first impulse? Is gratitude your go-to response? With God first, all else is given. And number 3 is make a vow of prosperity. Make a vow of prosperity. If you're ready to renounce all poverty in your life in all those areas, remember Ernest's definition of poverty. If you're ready to renounce poverty in your life, write your personal vow of prosperity this week. This can be in all areas or it can be in one specific area. Maybe that area that you made your wish in when we first started in service. Maybe that's a place to start. First thing, write down the area of poverty. Write down the poverty statement. Write down what it is. Then write your vow affirmatively in the present tense, not mentioning poverty at all, not mentioning lack, limitation, not even from a denial standpoint. This is a vow of what you are doing, not what you're not going to do, right? Vowing to do this, solemn vow to do, not what you're not going to do. Not, that's a double negative. Okay. Don't say poverty. Then go back and draw a bold line through that first statement of poverty, forever neutralizing it in your consciousness forever. And never speak of it again, as they say. I'll give you an example. I, Jill, solemnly swear to accept prosperity in every area of my life from this moment forward. Financial freedom is mine by my birth, as my divine inheritance because I'm a child of God. I affirm my oneness in God and in the allness of good, and I accept the automatic expression of abundance through me now and forevermore. So it is. Feel free to take that. If you do choose to do these practices this week, be aware of the ways that the universe is at play in your life. Expect it. Look for it. Because when you start playing in the depths and the field of the prosperity and infinite possibilities, things happen. Watch for it. Expect it. Expect synchronicity, coincidence. Expect it to show up this week. Well, this concludes our prosperity series for the month of October. I have thoroughly enjoyed this series and the deepening in prosperity principles. The mini workshop with Wallace Wattles' book was transformative. And my hope is that you too have had a prosperous month as well. It's been wonderful for me. I want to close us out with a quote from Ernest Holmes. And Ernest says, people must realize that no matter how infinite the infinite may be, it can only become to them what it can become through them. If we could open up and clean out our house mentally and get out of ourselves everything that ails us, I don't care what the poverty or the misery is, everything would be allowed because the infinite cannot refuse anything. This week, I invite you to make a vow of prosperity and live your more. Live your more. So it is. So it is. All right. Let's anchor that in some prayer this morning. Join me as we go within, recognizing that there is one source, one power, one presence. There's God and nothing else. It is the source of all that is, sourced of itself, for it is the one substance. And it is the creator of all that is. It loves so much that it creates of that love. And we see this demonstrated in our lives and the universe and grains of sand on a beach and leaves on a tree. Spirit is an abundant creator. And since we are manifest of that substance, of that love, we too are that which it is. We are creative. We are creator. We are prosperous. We are abundant in all areas of life. We are one in God. We are one in each other, and we are one with all of life, expressing the more of life in living. So knowing this unity, this connection, the wholeness that we are, I speak my word for and about each of us gathered here today, knowing, claiming, and accepting our own divinity, the divinity of each one of us, the light that we are of the divine, individualized, unique, choosing to express God in our own way as we believe. I know that each of us is abundantly blessed of the divine with the gifts and the talents that we possess. And as we recognize those gifts, those talents, we allow any beliefs that we have around expressing those or lack of expressing those to be dissolved. That we are good enough. We are brave enough. We are smart enough, tall enough, short enough, whatever, enough, more than enough to express the talents and gifts we've been given. And in this prayerful moment, we strip away any limitation we may have felt around expressing those gifts and simply open to allow them to flow through us with grace and gratitude and joy and thanksgiving, knowing that Spirit is given the gift and the talent along with the avenues through which they can flow. And only we can block, stop, or limit that in any way. And so in this moment, we release any of that. We release that. We let that go. And we just allow Spirit to express through us now. And so in this moment, I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today that they are seeking prayer support around, as they lift that into the consciousness of that prayer, this prayer, that we collectively hold each and every one in the light, in the healing light of love, the love of this community, supporting, holding, shining our light, knowing the truth that we are all spirit in form. We are all connected in the unity of the one life. Knowing that whatever needs to be healed is revealed with clarity and ease, that prosperity flows, and that love is alive. And how grateful I am for this knowing. Grateful for the manifestation of this prayer. Grateful for the good of God expressing as each of us, as I release this into the action of law, knowing that it's already done, knowing that it is so. And we affirm this truth together in this moment by saying, and so it is.